At the start of the summer, it was all talk about 30 million war chest that Celtic had. Have Celtic been complacent in the transfer market, going for the type of signings we went for? Let's listen to Chris Sutton and see what he had to say about the Celtic board this summer.
It was coming. It wasn't a great surprise, Celtic losing that game from the evidence which I've seen. I don't know whether Celtic have been complacent or arrogant in terms of they've already got Champions League qualification, to the group stage, so that they're straight in. But I think they've sat on their hands too much during this transfer window. They let Jota go for 25 million to Saudi Arabia. Aaron Moyer's gone. There are injuries to key defenders. They let Carl Starfelt go out to Celta Vigo last week when it's not the end of the window. Which I thought was a baffling decision, because if they're going to let him go, keep him until maybe Carter Vickers comes back. But Carter Vickers and Starfelt were the rocks for Celtic the last couple of seasons under Ange Postecoglou. Celtic never lost a domestic game with that partnership. So I think Celtic are weaker going into this season, and it's a worry. And now the pressure is on, because Brendan, first time round, 7 trophies out of 7 domestically, and is already out of the League Cup. So that's a worry. And at this moment in time, looking at the Champions League, which is a big deal for Celtic, and massive. They're always up against it in the Champions League. The squad are looking really, really weak and short. What it might do, though, is actually give them a kick up the backside, that we actually need to bring not development players in, but players who are ready to go straight into the first team and take Celtic up another level.
So he then went on to be asked about the fact that there's a certain section of our fans that don't want Brendan back, and this was his answer, which was quite interesting also.
Well, they would. I mean, I think that most of the Celtic support thought Brendan was the right man to come back in terms of coaching credentials, the best man for the job. But what we do know north of the border is the climate can change very, very quickly, and now I think, seeing the stuff online about how Celtic played, and a lot of supporters are unhappy about the way that they played, didn't create opportunities, and it will become a problem. They play Rangers in a couple of weeks, which now turns into an enormous game. And Michael Beale hasn't got off to a flyer himself. So, I mean, it's interesting times.
Is it something to worry about, the Glasgow Derby coming up? Are you really that worried about it? We do have 9 players. If you've seen the video this morning, we mentioned all 9 players. If you haven't watched that video, watch it after this one. We'll go through the whole 9 players that are first team players that are actually injured at the moment. And obviously the big one is Cameron Carter-Vickers. I mean, he is massive that he's out. And Alistair Johnston. I mean, both those players are basically first 2 starters. Him and Rio Hatate. 3 of those players, Alistair Johnston, Carter-Vickers and Rio Hatate are pretty much the spine of any team. And having them out this early in the season, is it a big issue? So with only 9 days left to go in the transfer window, we'll have to remember, and you look back, I mean, some of the players that we're talking about that came into Celtic that done fantastically well, Cameron Carter-Vickers for one, and Jota, and the Grumpy Greek, who looks like he might be on a move from Atlanta. They all came in on the last day of the window. So is it something to be worried about, Celtic fans? There is still time for the Celtic board to go out and buy some real quality that is first team ready. At the end of the day, no one thought that we were going to realistically go out and spend 10 to 15, we all hoped we would. We all hoped it would go out and maybe spend 10 million on a player. We all thought we would go out and spend 8 million on a goalkeeper. It was sitting there on our plate. We could have went for the guy and we could have got him in the door. It could have solved so many problems right at the start of the season. But we didn't. We dilly-dallied about. We're now waiting to see if a goalkeeper is going to go out on loan before we take action. We're such a reaction club. And it's the way that we are. The Ange Postecoglou used to say it. He said, we buy players in just in case a player gets sold on. It's now become the state that we're now getting players in as a reactive. We've turned into a reactive club once again. So tell me what your thoughts about what Big Sutton just said in the comments, and have a great day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the